And here's a key point here. In particular, Western pressure on Israel. We want to talk about that because I think it's an utter disgrace what the United States, France, and the UK are doing right now. And of course, it goes without saying, the UN, what they're doing. But it's another sign of the times where nations, whether they're Islamic nations, Western nations, the UN, the global body of nations, they're going to come against Israel. And no one takes any delight in saying that. We're just literally quoting from scripture that we know in the latter days that the campaign against Israel is going to intensify and the covetousness for Jerusalem will also intensify. So we will unpack all this. Hey, before we get started, quick reminder to subscribe and click the notification bell so you, our viewers, and we appreciate the platform that God has given us here to speak truth when it's so sorely needed, to shine light in the growing darkness. But a lot of that darkness emanates from Iran, the nation I call the head of the snake when it comes to global terror. And it's been tough for the Iranian regime. And I can't say I'm sad for them, but folks, it's been tough for them. I mean, think about it. Hamas, largely crushed in Gaza, as well as Islamic Jihad. And that's overlooked a lot. Palestinian Islamic Jihad was the other proxy, or is the other Iranian proxy operating in Gaza. They caused a lot of headaches for Israel over the years. And we focused rightly on Hamas being the main problem in Gaza because they quote unquote govern Gaza, if you can call it that. But Palestinian Islamic Jihad worked in tandem with Hamas many times. And a key point about them, and look, they had thousands of rockets at their disposal as well. They were training, funded by Iran, training in Iran, all the rest. But the key about Palestinian Islamic Jihad, they had no desire to govern or anything like that. Whereas Hamas, typical Muslim Brotherhood, by the way. Remember, Hamas is Muslim Brotherhood. They are a branch, they're the self-described. Look at Hamas's charter from 1987. Hamas is the self-described Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. And what's the Brotherhood's MO? I've done a lot of work on the Brotherhood, even wrote a book about them a few years back. They want to take power. The Brotherhood, look, they'll get into violent conquest when the moment's right. But up until that moment, they're going to get power through the ballot box. They're going to ingratiate themselves, sensitive positions, government, media, politics, education, all the rest. That's how the Brotherhood operates. And they have a grand scheme that they will attain political power as well, not just be a violent. And look, at the end of the day, the Muslim Brotherhood has the same end game as Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and all the rest, but just a different timeline and a different strategy. The Brotherhood affiliates around the world have largely done it. Look, they wear suits and ties and are Western educated. They want what ISIS wants. They just go about it differently. ISIS wants to kill you now, and they want it all now. The Brotherhood plays the patient game. I say all that to say, Hamas, being a branch of the Brotherhood, they think they can govern. Or at least they thought they could. Islamic Jihad, again, had no pretext about governing, no desire. They existed solely to destroy Israel and kill Jews, as does Hamas. But Hamas has the added caveat of, look, we'll also be a part of the caliphate, a part of the Muslim Brotherhood movement, and all the rest, and will rule by Sharia law. Islamic Jihad, again, same end game, but much, much different tactics. But so Islamic Jihad taken off the grid largely. Hamas smashed. Still a guerrilla force in Gaza, no doubt. And look, Israel has been talking about possibly re-entering North Gaza in a pretty serious way because Hamas, surprise, surprise, is trying to reconstitute itself in Gaza. And we knew this would happen. And Israel needs to be careful about getting into a game of whack-a-mole. I know Israel doesn't want that. So the more decisive Israel can defeat decisively, that Israel can defeat Hamas, the better. So Iran having a tough time of it in Gaza, a crucial ring on the Iranian ring of fire. Lebanon, of course, Hezbollah taking major lumps. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So right now, Iran is a bit desperate because the ring of fire, that makes this call for a global Islamic alliance make a lot of sense, right? Because it's really three, Iran's three most important proxies. Or, okay, Islamic Jihad in order of importance, are they top three? Not quite sure. But let's put it this way. Hezbollah, Hamas, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They are the three ring of fire proxies that Iran has invested the most time in. Iran founded Islamic Jihad, it founded Hezbollah, and it jumped on the Hamas train in the past 20 years or so. It's been a long time running, I guess you could say, that Iran has worked very closely with Hamas, Hez, and Islamic Jihad. And now they're being smashed. And Hezbollah in particular, look, founded in 1982 by Iran. It's a fully functioning arm of the Iranian regime. For 42 years, Iran built Hezbollah up into this monster, literally, on Israel's northern border. And now Hezbollah, according to some reports, has lost 60% of its firepower. Iran's feeling desperate right now. Look, the proxy strategy, the ring or fire strategy. It seemed like, man, this is going to be a very, very effective means of destroying the Zionist entity, as they would call Israel. Now it's unraveling. And I've said it and I'll say it again. You're going to see Iran cleave closer now to nation states. The Iranian regime, I'm sure, is doing a full reassessment right now of its strategy and saying, man, the proxies were too vulnerable. Hamas and Hezbollah, terrorist armies, no doubt. I mean, the most well-equipped, most powerful terror organizations in the world, no doubt. But still not a nation state. There's a big difference, obviously. You're a terrorist paramilitary organization. Certainly Hamas and Hezbollah, I mean, the most well-armed terrorist movements we've ever seen, even more so than ISIS, when ISIS had that caliphate in the heart of the Middle East back 2013, 14, 15, 16. And they conquered some 58,000 square miles of territory. Quick reminder. I told you I wrote a book about the Brotherhood. I wrote a book about ISIS too, called ISIS Exposed. Written a few. But ISIS had a decent amount of weaponry, but nothing compared to Hezbollah. And even Hamas. So you've got the world's two most well-equipped, well-armed terrorist organizations bleeding right now badly. So I think Iran is looking at the strategy, which looks so great on paper, right? Surround Israel on all sides. Israel's a tiny nation the size of the state of New Jersey. Surround Israel on all sides with the proxies. Arm them to the teeth, tens of thousands of rockets, missiles, drones. Have them dig tunnels. Have them have tens of thousands of well-trained foot soldiers at their disposal. And when the time is right, activate them all at once. As you're raining rockets, missiles from the sky, you invade on the ground, surprise attack like we saw on October 7th, and use the tunnel networks out of Lebanon and out of Gaza. And at the same time, Iran perhaps doesn't get involved at all, doesn't get its hands dirty, and lets its proxies do it all. That was the grand scheme. And document C's, and we discussed this on Monday's newscast as well. Again, folks, if you miss any of our live streams, just go to the homepage, right under newscast, October 7th, back on October 7th, 2022, back in the fall of 22. They waited a year, and one reason for that was because of this grand strategy. Hamas wanted Hezbollah and Iran and the Houthis and everyone else to join in. What Hamas did was it jumped ahead of the curve. Iran knew Hamas was planning this, and Iran blessed it, and Iran helped train Hamas for this, no doubt. But Hamas got ahead of the curve, and they anticipated that, okay, once we do it, Hezbollah and Iran will get involved. They'll pile on. Hezbollah did the next day, October 8th, but not in an all-out assault, the kind Hamas wanted. Now, Hezbollah increased its attacks over the past year, and now it's paying a heavy, heavy price. Made a fatal mistake on October 8th, 2023, when it began unilaterally launching rockets and missiles at Israel. But it didn't go according to plan. Let's just say that. On October 7th, 2023, Hamas signed its own death warrant, and I believe Hezbollah did too. So now Iran is reeling. This carefully placed strategy and planned strategy, I should say, for years. In the case of Hezbollah, decades, 42 years, is all going out the window now. Not only that, Iran itself is more vulnerable. Its rear guard is now exposed, in that if Israel were to hit Iran's nuclear weapons facilities, Iran's trump card was, look, we'll activate Hamas or Hezbollah, and Israel will unleash hell on Israel. Well, now they don't have that option. They have it to a very limited degree. Hamas and Hezbollah right now are just trying to survive as they're getting pounded by the IDF. So Israel pretty much has a clear lane to Tehran right now. And Iran, not only is it seeing its proxies pummeled, it's seeing just daring attacks on Iranian soil. You think of Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas leader eliminated a few months ago in Tehran under the regime's noses. You think of just a string of Iranian generals, Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps generals and heavy hitters eliminated in Beirut or Damascus. What were they doing there, by the way? Iranian generals in Beirut and Damascus in bunkers with Hezbollah leaders. Interesting. Will the UN ask about that? I think not. So Iran's vulnerable, not only physically, but mentally, I'm sure. So it makes a lot of sense that they're calling for a global alliance of Islamic nations. I think it makes sense prophetically as well. But before I get into that, here's what Masoud Pezeshkian, the new, relatively new, just took office a few months ago, Iranian president, said about that in a call today with the Sultan of Oman. Pezeshkian said, I'm just reading this from the Tehran Times, which is a mouthpiece for the Iranian regime, reading it straight off my phone. Pezeshkian expressed appreciation for Oman's condemnation of Israel's actions in Gaza and Lebanon, and he called for greater unity among Muslim nations in addressing these issues. He said, if Muslim countries act as one, the Zionist regime will not dare to commit violations so easily, nor will the U.S. and Western countries be able to support it. Strengthening friendly and amicable relations between regional countries and expanding regional cooperation, he said, guarantee a shared vision and language to solve our region's problems. Translation, our region's problem is Israel, and every Islamic nation needs to unite as one against Israel. And then if we do that, no one can stop us. What is that? That's the revival of the Islamic Caliphate. And when we're talking Muslim Brotherhood a few minutes ago, we're talking Caliphate, because that's their goal, to revive the Islamic Caliphate, to unite every nation, every Islamic nation, under one supreme Islamic ruler. And that means Sharia law for one and all, whether you like it or not. Now, the Brotherhood wants it. That's their whole rationale for being. And Iran wants it too, from a Shia perspective, but they're all vying to lead this thing. The Muslim Brotherhood wing would love to lead it. The Iranian regime would love to lead it. I guess I'd group Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan in the Brotherhood wing, because his Justice and Development Party is essentially the Turkish branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. But I think what you have right now is two sides trying to lead the Islamic world. And as you just heard, they're both calling for a united Islamic front against Israel. Number one, the Iranian regime. And this echoes a recent call just a few weeks ago, as we reported here in the live stream, by Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the Turkish president. He's calling for the Islamic world to unite against Israel. Here's where the prophetic angle comes in. Look, a lot of people agree, disagree, whether Russia will be involved or be a part of that Ezekiel coalition, the war of Gog and Magog, laid out in the book of Ezekiel, chapters 38 and 39. And by the way, this is if you have never watched us before, this is a news channel unapologetically from a biblical perspective, because Hezbollah is going down that same road. And the IDF, I wrote in the title today, look, it's advancing deeper into Lebanon. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. The Houthis, look, they've been humbled by Israel a few times, the Houthis in Yemen over the past few months. The Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, very dangerous, no doubt. But can they have the impact that, say, a Hezbollah and Hamas had with Israel? I don't think so. So Iran is repositioning itself and examining its strategy. Who's dependable? Turkey, Russia, China, nation states. That's why I've said, look, what happened on October 7th and October 8th, Hamas, Hezbollah, and their coming demise, and the humbling, well, they're not very humble. They're the most prideful, wicked bunch going today, the Iranian regime. But maybe humbling's not there. The weakening of the Iranian regime and their vulnerability now actually lines things up for Ezekiel, for the Ezekiel war. Because Iran is going to need a confederation of nations. It's clear now that the Ring of Fire strategy didn't work. And for Iran to accomplish its goal of destroying Israel, it needs nation states. It needs a large alliance of nation states who can't be eliminated so easily as Hamas and Hezbollah have been. And they'll get that with that Ezekiel invasion force, and Turkey will be side by side with the Iranian regime in that invasion force. Manufactured in Iran, Spain, and yes, Russia. Netanyahu specifically mentioned advanced Russian weapons in the hands of Hezbollah that have been uncovered in southern Lebanon. And listen, again, that has prophetic implications. Russia has been shoulder to shoulder with Hezbollah, Iran, and the Assad regime since 2015 when it entered Syria. I mean, that was 9 years ago. That was, I believe, September 2015 that Russia entered Syria. And guess what? They never left. And we said at the time, they're there to stay. And now they've got a perch on Israel's northern border, which I believe they will use one day as part of that Ezekiel invasion force. But no surprise. Look, Russia, here's something for you. And we've got a great educated audience here. I say we're the most educated audience on YouTube. Here's a question, and correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first time in world history that a nuclear weapons power is openly, I mean openly, aligned with terrorist organizations. I'm talking Hezbollah, and I'm talking Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, both of which have been designated as terrorist organizations by the U.S. and, at least in the case of Hezbollah, by other countries as well. And Russia is openly, a nuclear weapons power is openly aligned with terrorists. The nearest example I can think of would be the Taliban with the Pakistani ISI, their intelligence services, and the Pakistani military. But if there's anything I'm missing, let me know. I may be. But that's a swift cursory glance at the 20th and 21st century where we have nuclear powers. Let me know. What do you think, folks? If I'm missing something, tell me. That's pretty dangerous. Call me. But Israel, Going deeper. This is a great unreported story, by the way, as we're talking Lebanon. Israel going deeper into Lebanon, really smashing Hezbollah and uncovering, and we've been talking about this for a few weeks since the ground invasion commenced. No one's talking about the ground invasion now, other than number one, call for an immediate ceasefire, which would leave Hezbollah alive to fight another day, disastrously. And number two, stop hitting UNIFIL, that arm of the UNIFIL, and I forget the acronym what it stands for right now. But what I do know is it's completely ineffectual. Since 2006, they were supposed to be enforcing the resolution in Lebanon that would keep Hezbollah away from the Israel border. That didn't work out. But UNIFIL is essentially acting as a human shield, or human shields plural, for Hezbollah right now in southern Lebanon. And the IDF is saying, look, you got to get out of there. You're in the way. We're trying to destroy Hezbollah capabilities and kill Hezbollah terrorists, and you're in the way. And UNIFIL is apparently not playing ball. So we'll see how that develops over the next few days. Expect more howling, weeping, and gnashing of teeth from the UN, and yes, the West, or what's left of the West, when we have the leaders like we have right now in the US, Britain, and France, as they're calling for ceasefire in Lebanon, ceasefire in Gaza, threatening to withhold weapons shipments from Israel like the US is right now. It's a disaster. With friends like these, who needs enemies, right? And the complete moral abdication of the Western world. I mean, look, I think if Donald Trump gets in November, it's a new sheriff in town and it's a new day. And people sometimes comment, oh, you like Trump? I do. I do. I think he's the man for the job in the United States, no doubt. And big question, if you're an American, were you better off 4 years ago than you are today?